have a dream that one day this nation will rise up, live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, sons of former slaves and the sons...
A membership boasting more than 300 women. From the north, south, central, the rural, and urban areas, we stand together as one voice for change. And I am so proud to call myself a woman for Obama. We are so lucky and excited today to have with us an accomplished and truly amazing woman. In her own right, along with being the wife of our future President, Barack Obama, Michelle Obama is a lawyer, a longtime community activist, and a public servant, and a dedicated working mother of two beautiful girls. I am so thrilled and thankful to have the honor of introducing our next First Lady of the United States of America. Michelle Obama.
It's so exciting. I have been traveling around the country on behalf of my husband, more and more and more. And I can tell you that we get just as much energy from you guys as you from us. Because as a mother, as a working woman, it is so refreshing to be reminded that there's so many people who are hungry for something different. And that people are fed up and ready for a change. And it's also beautiful to understand that people around the country want the same things in life. It's very simple. People want a better world for their children. That's why I'm out here. I believe in my husband, but I also want a better world for my girls. And family is critical to us in all things that we do, but in particularly in the here with me. They're not here because they are swimming. They were sitting in the bed with their big blankets and the remote and their breakfast, and they said, "See you, Mom." But one thing people want to know most from me is how we're handling all the changes, the changes to our lives in the midst of this. And what I tell people is that we are doing just fine. Because when Barack and I made the decision to enter this race, we said that our children and our family would be first in this process. That's how we want to lead our own home, and that's how we want to lead as a country. So we've made compromises. I've reduced my schedule to 20%, and I'll eventually be taking a leave, but that allows me to be the parent in the household and get to the potluck to make sure the play dates are scheduled and that they got signed up for camp and they got to the dentist and the orthodontist, and you know what I'm talking about. You know, what I do is that I usually do day trips. This is an exception because the girls are out of school, thank God. School was rough at the end of the year. They skipped everything for the last 2 weeks, but they're out and they'll be in camp on Monday. But when they're in, I do day trips. I get up in the morning, I get them dressed, I get them to a neighbor's. If I can't get them to school, I get on a plane, I come to a city. I do several events, I get on a plane, I get home before bedtime. And by doing that, you know, yeah, I'm a little tired at the end of the day, but for the girls, it's like Mommy went to work. They didn't know I was in New Hampshire. And quite frankly, they don't care. So that's been a good situation for the both of us. The other thing that I've been doing as I've been traveling around is really trying to introduce myself and introduce our family to the world, to the country, because I believe that what's going to make the difference in this race is really people's ability to feel connected. Policies are critical. The plan, how we're going to get to a certain place is important, but in the end, can you trust us? Do you feel like you know who we are? How do we operate as a family? How do we stay grounded? Because if you don't have that basic trust, then how are you going to follow? How are we going to lead? So I begin by talking about my upbringing, and we don't talk about resumes. You can read that on the website, but what's important is how we grew up. And I am a girl who grew up on the south side of Chicago. South side girl. We got some south siders in the house. My parents were working class folks. My father worked as a stationary fireman for the city of Chicago in the water filtration plant my entire life. My mother stayed at home until I went to high school. I have an older brother who I love dearly. He's a basketball coach for Brown University. My big brother, he's 6'6". We both are products of the Chicago public school system. I went there throughout until I graduated from high school, and he went until high school, because my parents were concerned that a black man who could play basketball would also get an education, so they took him out and put him in a Catholic school. And their decision paid off, because not only was he a great athlete, but he was a phenomenal student, and he earned admission to Princeton University. And I tell that story because I'm very proud of my brother, but that was my first exposure to the Ivy League, this notion that that was possibility for me. Even though I was a bright student, there were very limited resources in the public school system, as is the case now for kids getting to college and really thinking this through. So I would have never considered Princeton University, but then I looked at my brother and I thought, well, shoot, I'm smarter than him. So I applied and I got in. And what I marvel at is not just the notion that here we are, these two working class kids, that we got in and actually thrived in one of the most Ivy of the Ivy League schools, but that my parents had the foresight to send us and to dream big and to make what had to have been some tremendous sacrifices economically to make sure that our tuitions were paid and that we got through that hole. And I marvel at my parents, in particular my father, who had multiple sclerosis. And he suffered from the disease as a young adult. He was fine up until his 20s. He was vibrant, served in the military, was a swimmer, was a boxer, and then he went to going to the point where he couldn't walk without the assistance of a cane. And then before his death, a year before I got married, he could only get around on a motorized cart. And I think of my father often, particularly at this time in our lives. I think about how proud he would be of us. But I know that he struggled and he had disappointment, and there must have been fear that he could get up every day and go to work and keep bringing home an income and keep a roof over our heads, and that, you know, he didn't have control over his disease, and there was probably embarrassment that went along with it. But regardless of what he was going through, we never knew. He never let on, he never complained. He got up every day, he went to work, he went on time, he paid his bills, he took care of us. And when I think about what motivates me, it is the vision of my father getting up every day, taking care of his business, Amen, and giving me the blessings to be able to be here today. And I know that I owe so much for that. And that guides my choices in life, what I want to be when I grow up, how I'm going to give back, you know, how I want to direct myself in life, and it affected who I chose as a husband, because I was looking for somebody who shared my values. And I actually have to tell you, when I first met Barack Obama, I was a little skeptical. Because I did what most people did. I made assumptions based on titles and things that didn't mean anything. We were in I was a first-year associate at a law firm. I had gone on to Harvard and was working as a corporate associate my first year. And they have these summer programs where they recruit first-year students. Barack was a first-year student at Harvard. And the firm was abuzz about this hotshot first-year student that was coming on to work at Harvard. I mean, was from Harvard to work at the firm. And I thought, well, this is probably just a black man that can talk straight. That's why they're excited about it. So I lowered my expectations. I was like, I've seen this time and time again. And then I found out that he grew up in Hawaii. And I thought, oh gosh, I've never met a black man who has spent his formative years on an island, so he's probably a little weird. But I met him on that first day. I was assigned to be his advisor. I wasn't looking forward to it because I thought he was weird. But he walked into my office and he was a lot cuter than I thought, which helped. And I found him to be very different from what I assumed. We went to lunch that first day and we talked. And I found him to be charming and intelligent and self-deprecating. He was confident without being cocky, but most importantly, he was like me. He was raised in a biracial family. His grandparents were white, but they were working class people from Kansas. And they got up and worked hard every day. And his mother was a very young, very single parent who was trying to get her education, was studying in Indonesia, had the vision to leave Kansas and Hawaii to go across the ocean to study, to try to better her life. And he was raised across 2 continents. And she struggled to make sure that he had what he needed. And he knew, like me, that he was blessed. And that he didn't have to be where he was, didn't know his father. Yet he was able to thrive and survive. He made some stumbles, made some mistakes, but at the very core of who he was with the values that came from his grandparents. And that's what I connected with in him, sort of that decency in him. And then he told me that instead of, when he graduated from college, taking a big job on Wall Street, he decided to become a community organizer. And quite frankly, I didn't even know what a community organizer was. I had never met a professional black man that was working in the community. So I was impressed by that. And then when I found out what community organizing was, he took me to a training that he was doing on the far south side of Chicago. He was working in churches on the far south side. Most of the people in that training were African Americans, single parent mothers, grandparents raising their grandchildren. And they were there because they wanted a better life for themselves and their children. They wanted safe streets, they wanted schools that would prepare their children, they wanted a clean environment, they wanted jobs that paid a living wage, but like most people, they were disappointed in government. No one really worked with them to get them what they needed. At every turn, they were discouraged. So they were coming together to try to figure out how to recapture their power and make things happen for themselves. And Barack walked into that little church just as confident and comfortable as he was at that big law firm. And he rolled up his sleeves and he launched into what for me was the most eloquent discussion of the world as it is and the world as it should be. And I think about that. It's like that is the struggle that we have as a people. There's the world that we live in that we know is broken. And we don't like it, and we know that there are things wrong, and we know what fair looks like. We know what righteousness looks like. But the job of organizing and of ordinary people is to do the work to narrow the gap between those 2 ideas. And he connected with me and everyone in that church basement. Just as he's connecting with you, he was able to articulate a vision that resonated with people and was real, and I knew then and there that this guy was special. That he had an ability and a heart and a decency that really mattered. The authenticity that you see and feel that you react to was what drew me to him, and that's why I fell in love with him. That's why I started thinking differently about my career and my place in the world and what I was doing to move us to the world as it should be. And what I can tell you is that Barack has been consistent as a person who has lived his life by his principles, not by some pursuit of power. And he has done that at every step of the way, and that's why I'm here. That's why I'm on the road.
I've journeyed far. I've slept out in the desert with the stars. I've felt the mystery. I've been broken down. I've seen my dreams fall like ashes to the ground. I've been my own worst enemy, but your mercy is the sweetest gift to me. Your sweet mercy is the air I wanna breathe. I feel it washing over me. And I've traveled long, and I prayed for my vision to carry on when my eyes just couldn't see. I've been betrayed,